War. War never changes.
From the dusty mesa, a looming shadow grows, hidden in the branches of the poison creosote. She twines the spines up slowly towards the boiling sun, and when I touched her skin, my fingers ran with blood.
War. War never changes. This phrase that is featured in every game of the Fallout franchise usually is said by the miraculously soothing voice of Ron Perlman, which prepares you to traverse the wastelands as if it was just another day. However, after the introduction finishes, you don't hear that line until the credits roll again, and it kind of disappears from your mind. You get caught up in the
Spurs that jingle, jangle, jingle.
or in the
Bongo, 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 I don't wanna leave the Congo. Oh, no, 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 no.
and of course,
All the shooting.
Geeked up, playing Xbox all day.
A lot of killing.
but then, what does it all mean? Why doesn't war change? And are we at fault? For as long as humanity has existed, we have been feuding with one another over any imaginable thing, let it be love, power, or land. Some examples are told to us in the intro of the very first Fallout.
War. War never changes. The Romans waged war to gather slaves and wealth. Spain built an empire from its lust for gold and territory. Hitler shaped a battered Germany into an economic superpower. But war never changes.
It shows the long-standing history of humanity and its relationship with waging war, and although weapons, flags, and uniforms change, the reasons stay the same. After hundreds of years in the vault, you expect for the world to be reset. However, America is covered in a completely different color palette than the one you thought it would be. Fallout 1, in my opinion, has the darkest and dreariest tone of the whole franchise, showing how the world, even after its own demise, still carries the attitudes and practices that burnt it to a crisp. It makes you believe that there is truly no hope for humanity, that abuse and greed still thrive just like they did before, and that even a nuclear apocalypse can't wipe out the need for senseless violence. In Fallout New Vegas, my personal favorite of the bunch, the quote is taken very literally, having empires of the past, like the Mongols, come back in the form of the Great Khans, the Romans as Caesar's legion, and the clearest of them all being the NCR, representing the democratic nation that America was before the Great War. The Fallout franchise puts a dark, post-apocalyptic twist on everything that happened in our history, like the Bitter Springs massacre that happened prior to the beginning of Fallout New Vegas in 2278. After the NCR's victory in the Battle of Hoover Dam, the Khans were the largest group in the region. The plan was to wipe out the Great Khans once and for all. However, it went wrong when the regiment was spotted by the Khan scouts. A group of troops from the 1st Recon Battalion was put in place overlooking a canyon that was the only escape. However, the Khans that came running through that canyon weren't warriors, but women, children, and wounded soldiers. The 1st Recon group, unsure if to shoot, contacted the commanding officer, and the response they got back was, "Shoot till we're out of ammo." And so, all of them were gunned down. The gunfire was only halted when the second in command, Captain Daughtry, took charge, as the major who was initially selected to lead the operation was in psychological shock after learning what had happened. However, by then, it was all too late. Similarly, on March 16th, 1968, in South Vietnam, when American soldiers massacred 2 hamlets, which would be then called the My Lai Massacre, they were told beforehand that all civilians would have been long gone. That day, they killed hundreds of Vietnamese villagers. Just like that, history repeated itself in the Fallout universe, just like it does in ours as well. Ulysses, who if you're not familiar with, is the main antagonist in Fallout New Vegas' Lonesome Road DLC, has some of the best writing of any character I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. He's a character that carries so much trauma from his tribe going extinct, now being the remaining member of the Twisted Hairs, to then losing the Divide, which he believed to be a nation that was different to the NCR and the Legion, and that could have been a step forward to rebuilding and creating a new world. This hatred blinds even Ulysses, who through his travels has seen so many lands and nations, making him believe that the only way forward is to launch nukes onto both the NCR and Caesar's Legion. In his final message, one of the things he says is,
If war doesn't change, men must change, and so must their symbols. Even if it is nothing at all, know what you follow, courier, just as I followed you to the end. Whatever your symbol, carry it on your back and wear it proudly when you stand at Hoover Dam.
humanity as a whole may not be able to change, but we must take it on ourselves to change for the better through the paths that we walk, and to be knowledgeable about your history and to not make the same mistakes as we did years before. War may be engraved in humans, but that is solely because we believe that is the only rightful solution. When just like Ulysses and the courier did, there's always a solution with discourse, even if your speech skill is not the best. Most recently, the line was delivered in the Fallout show by Cooper and Barb Howard, which has given me a whole new perspective to the quote, which starts every Fallout game. Barb Howard uses the famous line in a Vault Tech meeting with other pre-war CEOs, where she brings up the idea of launching nuclear warheads themselves to bring about the end of the world, to create a future where war is obsolete. Because in the world of the pre-war Fallout, war is inevitable. It is insane to imagine that the quote that has lived in the heads of Fallout fans for decades played a big part in convincing the other CEOs in starting the nuclear Armageddon which we see in the series. A quote which is so anti-war was actually used to ignite the greatest war, which almost eliminated mankind. In the end, I believe that war indeed does not change, but we are not at fault for it. We live in a capitalistic society where, just like in Fallout, we are in a race for who can accumulate the most resources. And war is a tool that is used too much to pit us against each other, so the rich can hoard more. Violence is ingrained in us, and as long as our DNA allows this, we won't have a world free of conflict. Although many do not wish to engage in any violent action, there will always be someone who will wish to inflict pain on another, whether it be to gain something or because of nationality, race, religion, or ideology. I hope you'll enjoy this video, despite it being slightly more serious than my other ones. Stay safe everyone, and I'll see y'all in the next video.